Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. It is Sunshine Lorena and this is Vlogmas Bookmas Day 12 and I'm coming at you with some short book recommendations. So all of these books that I recommended today are under 250 pages. A lot of them are just over the 200 page mark, but yes, all under 250 pages. And yes, these are short books that I've enjoyed, that I want to recommend to you guys. I know on BookTube a lot, sometimes it's hard seeing how many books people are reading. Sometimes you feel like it's a competition, and it doesn't really matter if somebody reads 10, 20, 50, 100, 200 books. When people are throwing those numbers out there, you need to remember that they could all be short books. They could be like 200 pages and you're actually reading 500, 600 page books. So don't fear, these are some short ones that, yes, I think are really fun, quick, help you on your reading goals, and I think there's some great books, basically. I do read a variety of lengths, but it's nice sometimes to have a short book in there, kind of breaks up your reading, and yeah, so let's just kick it off. There is a mixture of genres in here. There's some horror, some classics, light fantasy, romance, literary fiction, you know, we've got it. We've got them all in this one. So I'm going to kick this first off with Before the Coffee Gets Cold. This is the first one in a trilogy. The first two definitely are translated into English. I own the second one down there and not read it yet. But there is a third one which I don't know if it's been translated yet into English. But anyway, so this is translated from Japanese into English. It is 213 pages, at least in the edition that I have is 213 pages. So really not that long. It is a quick, fast read if you're looking to get through something quite quickly and enjoyable. In this one, it is set in a cafe, in case you didn't guess with that title. It's set in a cafe, and there's like these kind of rumours that people hear that you can time travel in this cafe. So you get people who do go there normally, just have a coffee, whatever, and then people go there because they've heard about this time travelling that apparently you can do. However, it turns out there are certain rules with this. You have to sit in a very specific seat to be able to do it. Like the coffee has to get poured by like somebody specific. But the main catch of it is that you have to get back before your coffee gets cold. Otherwise, I think you end up being stuck or something. Another big catch on this one is that in order for you to time travel, the person needs to have been in the cafe themselves, and you can go travel back in the cafe. So if they've never been there, you're never going to be able to go back and actually visit them if there's someone specific. In this, it's actually split into like 4 stories. Like you have your main characters who work at the cafe and they're throughout, but then you have like 4 kind of separate time travel stories, and you see them interweave in between as well. But I really thought it was interesting how people had different reasons for their time traveling and how that actually worked out. You get a mixture of emotions in this one. Like I said, this is a bit of like kind of light kind of fantasy, I'd say, and I really like the cover. I don't know if you can see, but it's like sparkly, and yes, I read this last year. It's a really great read and I definitely recommend it for you guys. Next up, I'm going to go with a classic here, and that is The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. I read this last year, and actually I think it was around about the same time as Before the Coffee Gets Cold. This I want to say is 120 pages. No, that's references. 115 pages. I wasn't far off, guys. I wasn't far off. So it's set in the 1920s, in case you didn't know, in America, around New York. So you get those very much 1920s party vibes. I don't know, I love the 1920s when things are set there. I just love the vibes of that era. So yes, this is kind of considered one of F. Scott Fitzgerald's finest novels. We follow our narrator, who is Nick Carraway, and the reader is taken into this superficially glittering world of mansions which lined the Long Island shore of the American seaboard in the 1920s. To encounter Nick's cousin Daisy, Jay Gatsby, and the dark mystery which surrounds him. So yes, like I said, there's like parties in this one, and there's this whole mystery around Gatsby, how people don't really know that much about him, and yes, I thought it was really good, intriguing. For a classic, I found it very easy to read. I flew through this in like an afternoon. It's a really quick read, and if you are not too sure about classics, this is one that I definitely recommend as an easier one to pick up. I know they're not for everyone, but yeah, so if you're looking for an easier one to try, I recommend this one, and also because it's short. However, just to point out, not all classics that are short are easy to read. Mrs. Dalloway. So yes, but this one definitely, I personally think, is one of the easier ones. And moving on, also in the 1920s, is Passing by Nilla Larsen. I read this on audiobook, which is why I don't have the physical one, but again, it is around the same sort of page numbers, about 120 pages. It's set in 1920s Harlem, New York. So in Passing, we have two main characters. We have Irene and we have Claire. So it's about these two women, like I said, in 1920s New York, and they both walk different sides of the colour line. They could both potentially pass for white, however, both of them don't. Claire, so Irene encounters Claire when she's actually, just for an afternoon, she was really thirsty. She stopped off in this hotel to have like a tea, and she just passed for white, so she was able to do it, because like I said, it's set in the 1920s New York, so there obviously was still a lot of tension in America. I mean, there still is now, but you know, there was still a lot of division, so she wouldn't have been able to otherwise drink in this hotel. And it's there that she meets her childhood friend Claire, and she subsequently finds out that Claire has been passing as a white woman. She's married to a white man who has no idea that she is not actually white, and this encounter changes the lives of these two women very much. So like I said, they walk two different sides of the colour line. Irene doesn't pass for white. She is married to a black man. She has children. They live in Harlem, and they have like a townhouse, and they're doing quite well for themselves. And Claire, like I said, she lives with a white husband, and she's doing really well for herself as well. And then this encounter kind of leads Claire to want to kind of explore Irene's side of New York a little bit more, and she kind of wants to kind of see what she's been missing out on, is the best way to describe it. But yes, there's a lot of tension between these two characters, and I don't want to see too much else, because I don't want to give away too much, but it's about this tension between these two characters, about passing. There's so much in this. It's so good, and Netflix have adapted it into a film, which I watched as well, and I thought that was really, really great. I definitely recommend it, and I was able to listen to this on audiobook, and usually with classics I have to read the physical book, and I could have the audiobook as well, but I feel like I always have to have something physically in front of me, whether an ebook or a physical book. But this was actually really accessible, again, like the Great Gatsby, and I was able just to listen to it all on audiobook, so definitely recommend that one. Then I've got a collection of short stories, and that is Things We Lost in the Fire by Mariana Enriquez. This is a collection of short horror stories, and this comes in at 198 pages. This has been translated from Spanish into English. Her author, she is from Argentina, and the short stories are all set in Argentina, mainly in Buenos Aires, and you really feel like the history of Argentina, dictatorship, how that's affected the country. You feel that coming through, even through her stories in this. And the horror is very much in this. It's also a lot of real life things. There's other stuff that isn't so much real life, but there is a lot of real life affected horrors that come through in her short stories. It's really hard to speak about short story collections because you don't have a plot to describe. But yes, they're short horror stories. There are some that I really, really enjoyed. Other ones that weren't quite as good, but overall I gave this like a 5-star when I did read it the other year, the other October, and I think they're just wonderfully written. Like I said, you feel the history coming through, and it's written excellently. I definitely recommend this. And yes, if you're looking, this is one of the first horror kind of books I picked up, so I thought it was a really kind of good intro into it for me personally. But yes, I definitely recommend this, and yeah, well, I can't really say anything else. I never know how to speak about short story collections. Can't say much else, but trust me, I recommend this. And my favourite story of this whole collection was The Neighbour's Courtyard. That one like freaked me out at the end. At the end I was so freaked out. If you read it, you'll know, you'll probably get why. But I literally, like, I was in my room, I came out and I was just like this, like looking around, and it's just got to do with how that story turned out. But yes, definitely recommend that one. Then I'm going to quickly mention this. I'm not going to speak about this too much, but it's my favourite book of all time. If you have been around on my channel for a while, you know that The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho is one of my favourite books. And I want to say again, it's around 200 pages. In this edition it's 177, which is great. Short, really short, quick read. I obviously love it. I recommend it. I know it's not something that's for everyone, but I definitely recommend it. It's like a literary fiction, I'd say, with some, yeah, literary fiction. I'm going to read the synopsis on this one because I didn't know very much about this one going into it, so I never want to actually fully use my own words and explain it in case I give away too much and you don't get the same experience that I did. I know you won't always get the same experience that I did, but I don't want to give too much away. So in this one it says, dreams are made to be followed, life is meant to be lived. Some books are meant to be read, loved and passed on. The Alchemist is one of these books. The Alchemist is the story of a shepherd boy from the Spanish region of Andalusia who journeys to the exotic markets of North Africa and then into the Egyptian desert, where a fateful encounter with the alchemist awaits him. And that's all I'm going to say on that one. Again, it's another translated one. It's translated from Portuguese into English and Brazilian Portuguese actually. So there is a bit of a common theme here in my recommendations. There are several actually translated works in this. And this one's, yes, I do enjoy a good translated book, but I recommend this one. And I really like this cover. It's not my favourite one out of my collection, guys. And maybe I should do that. Maybe I should do a video one time and actually show you all of my Paulo Coelho collection, because that would be really good. But yes, that's that one. Recommend it. And if you do read it, like, send me a message like on Twitter, Instagram or whatever, or write in a comment, because if you want to speak about it, if you loved it as much as I did, like, I love speaking to people about this, so let me know if you read it and you enjoy it. Then the next one is The Notebook by Nicholas Sparks. I'm not a fan of this cover, but I really love this book. It's been quite a few years since I read it. It's a romance, like a historical romance. If you didn't know, if you've not seen the film, if you've never read it, yeah, it's been several years, but it was like a 5-star read for me. I absolutely love this one. And yes, in terms of pages, this is 214 pages. So again, you know, really nice, quick, short, quick read. So in this one, it's set in North Carolina in October 1946. Noah Calhoun has recently returned from war. He tries to forget the horrors he has seen and experienced by restoring an old plantation home. But through his days are spent working, his nights too often give way to dreams of his past. 14 years ago, Noah fell in love with a girl and he's still haunted by her memory, though convinced he'll never find her again. But when the past slips into the present, Noah realises his ghosts are never that far away. And this one is just so lovely, and it's just, I adore this book. I absolutely adore it. Recommend it if you are looking for a bit of like historical romance. And yeah, I thought it was a good setting as well. Really enjoy it. Recommend, obviously, because this is a recommendation video. But yes, it's a great one. It's a great one, and it's one that I really want to reread soon actually. Then we're gonna go with another classic, guys, and that is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. This is like classic gothic horror vibes. And in my edition, there are 215 pages. The writing in this one is kind of small, but yes, I really enjoyed it. I read it in January. It's not the quickest of reads for me, but I think I just kind of took my time because I wasn't used to reading classics this far back, because it was written in 1818, I want to say. So it just really depends on what kind of classics you're used to reading. This is the complete and unabridged edition as well here. So this one, she blends gothic horror and romance in a story that's both world famous and increasingly relevant. Frankenstein is a young, idealistic student of natural philosophy who, finding the secret of giving life to matter, creates a living being. The monstrous creation, though tender-hearted and gentle in nature, inspires fears in those who meet him and must hide away from society. Increasingly lonely and isolated, the monster becomes embittered and cruel, taking a hideous revenge on his creator. And a dramatic denouement in which Frankenstein pursues his creation in the Arctic in order to destroy him, Mary Shelley reveals the terrifying consequences of playing God. And yes, this is great. It's a classic for a reason. I really enjoyed it. Those gothic horror vibes, and I can see how the genre has developed as I've been exploring a little bit more of horror. But yes, if you're looking to get into horror, this is another good one to read. And I have found that I really like classics written in like the 1800s. I really enjoy that style of writing. So hopefully you do too. And yeah, that's that one. And now the last one I have here is another horror, and that is Rosemary's Baby by Era 11. And this one that I have here, it's 229 pages. So again, not very long. This is kind of like a classic, but not really. I suppose a modern classic, technically, would that be considered, of the horror genre. There has been a film and everything for this one. I haven't seen the film, I've only read the book, and I read this in summer. And yes, I really enjoyed this one. I read it as part of Summerween, and I thought it was a really quick read for me. It was good to see, like, again, how horror has developed throughout the ages. So like, you know, from Frankenstein to this, to then like the collection of short stories, like it's really interesting to see how things have developed and how fears people have as well at different ages. So in this one, we're following Rosemary and her husband Guy. Her husband is a struggling actor, and they end up moving into the Bramford, which is this really famous building in New York. When they get offered, they come off the waiting list. It's always been her dream to kind of live in this building, and she's so excited. This building has a reputation and only seems to appear to have more elderly residents in it as well. There is a couple of neighbours who soon come nosing around to welcome them, and despite Rosemary's reservations about their eccentricity and the weird noises she keeps hearing, her husband starts spending time with them. Shortly after Guy lands a plum Broadway role, Rosemary becomes pregnant, and the Cassavetes, the neighbours, start taking a special interest in her welfare. As the second Rosemary becomes increasingly isolated, she begins to suspect that the Cassavetes circle is not what it seems. And yes, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the mystery of this one. There is a second one, but I haven't read it, but I haven't heard good reviews about it. So if you have read it, let me know. But I enjoyed this one, how the story developed. And like I said, it was quick, fast-paced as well, which is what you really want in these short ones. You know, you want quick, reading them quickly and getting those books ticked off on your reading goal. And that's it, guys. That is all of the short book recommendations I'm recommending at the moment. I suppose this is going to be kind of a part one, because I definitely, like I said, I read short ones and long books, so there'll be another one at some point. But yes, that's all I have at the moment. I am posting every single day up until Christmas. Today, like I said, is day 12, so I'm doing really well so far. And yes, comment, like, subscribe. Let me know if you've read any of these or you have any short book recommendations for me. And I will hopefully see you in the next one, which will be up tomorrow. Bye!